And I'll continue my finance hosting duties by introducing Ted Roosevelt IV, who has been one of the real pioneering leaders on Wall Street, the financial community, in the whole clean energy arena for many, many years, and prior to Barclays at Lehman Brothers. And I would just say that there's nobody in the clean tech financing, renewable energy financing, efficiency financing world on Wall Street that's more respected by his peers than Ted. So please welcome Ted.
You know, this is a fantastic conference. It's the only one I know where I can be introduced not only by a good friend, but a competitor. Now, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is Congress is on its summer recess. The bad news is the summer recess will be short. Now, I'd like to begin by reviewing where we've gotten in decarbonizing our electric power sector, and I'm using it to some extent for a proxy for the clean sector overall. In the past 14 years, the nation has built 59, now maybe 60 gigawatts of wind farms and 12 gigawatts of solar farms. This cumulatively represents less than 4.5% of the nation's generating capacity. This, in my opinion, is insufficient progress. This sector accounts for 40% of the U.S. Greenhouse gas emissions. The most important factor driving this development have been the renewable portfolio standards of individual states. A very high percentage, 98% of wind and solar farms are located in states with renewable portfolio standards or adjacent states that export electricity to the state with RPS standards. As a general rule, and there are exceptions, wind energy or solar energy tends to be more expensive than electricity using conventional fossil fuel or particularly natural gas. Without the requirement to meet an RPS standard, utilities simply would not have built or entered into power purchase agreements, which are essential agreements to building these large-scale projects. Congress has passed legislation that provides subsidies for clean energy. These tax preferences are both expensive and, as we've seen, not particularly effective over that 14-year period. A staff report of the U.S. Senate Committee on Finance said, this is the committee responsible for passing these preferences, quote, "Our current collection of energy-related tax preferences is far less effective than it could be. It has grown into a confusing and more costly maze over time. Today, there are more than a dozen for fossil fuel subsidies, 10 different incentives for renewable fuels. The credit for clean electricity alone has been adjusted 14 times since 1978, end quote. The uncertainty that these frequent changes creates for the investor is a major financial barrier for the development of clean energy. For example, installation of new wind energy capacity declined by 20% in 2013 compared to 2012, whereas in 2012 it had gone up by more than 18% compared to the prior year. Most of the decline in 2013 was the result of policy uncertainty around whether or not Congress would renew the tax preference for clean energy. Most observers of energy tax policy agree that it does not achieve its objective and is in need of reform. The biggest objections that I have to the long-term use of tax preferences is that they do not lower the cost of clean energy. The tax preferences benefit the developer of the project, but they do not provide an incentive to invest in innovative technology. The National Venture Capital Association, I'll refer to it as association later, observed to a working group on energy for the House Committee on Ways and Means, no current policy supports the kind of innovation and adoption of new technology that ensures our long-term competitiveness in global energy markets. The association came up with an ingenious tax called the Energy Investment Credit, which would provide a credit directly to the innovators of new technology that was materially different than existing technology. Now, to emphasize the importance of innovation, the association refers to a Department of Commerce report that says technological innovation is linked to 3/4 of the nation's post-World War II growth rate. Two innovation-linked factors, capital investment and increased efficiency, represent 2.5 percentage points of the 3.4% average annual growth rate achieved since the end of World War II. The association added that historically, private investment in innovative technology has been weaker in the energy sector than almost every other industry. For example, in 2010, the 5 largest oil companies spent a total of $36 billion in R&D, which sounds like a lot, but represents less than 2% of profits and less than 45/100% of total expenditures. In the utility sector, the major utilities employ on average less than 5 people in R&D roles per 1,000 employees, which is the lowest in any industry. To be sure, the cost of clean energy has declined dramatically over the past 6 or 7 years. The huge investments and access to capital the Chinese government made available to its solar panel manufacturers helped lower the cost of solar power to the benefit of consumers in the United States and Europe, and to the detriment of solar panel manufacturers in both areas. For example, in the period 2008 to 2014, the install cost per watt for Chinese multicrystalline silicon modules decreased from $4 per watt to well under $2. Now, it is likely that clean energy costs will continue to decline as we develop more manufacturing know-how and continue to benefit from economies of scales. But probably the prices will decline at a slower rate than in the 2008-2014 period. Now, stated starkly, we will not materially and faster decrease our carbon footprint from the utility sector until the price of clean energy is lower than the cost of conventional fossil fuel energy.